What was it like when you first started? Because the first few years are absolutely brutal.
I look back at it with fondness in the sense that I don't have to do it anymore. It was part of the learning, but I sat in a cubicle, we called it the bullpen, and it was about this big. And this was before when the internet was just kicking off, so the internet wasn't a big thing. So I had a stack of leads. I'd put the stack of leads there on paper, and you had a phone. I didn't have a computer to take notes or do anything, and you were just calling people.
What is valuation?
I think that you never know what the value of the business is until you go to market. It's like a home. Somebody can tell you your business is, or your home's worth a certain amount, but until you go to market, you don't know what somebody's willing to pay.
Whenever it comes to creating the content, especially organic content, I think it works beautifully from a lead nurture perspective and a validation. So if somebody refers a friend over to you and they immediately pull up your website, pull up your social media, and they say, oh, he's creating a bunch of content. Oh, look at all this stuff that they're doing. It immediately gives you even more credibility, and it removes friction from the sales process.
I think the best marketing is great service. If you deliver a great experience, people want to share that with other people.
How is it going, ladies and gentlemen? Welcome back to The Way of the Wolf. On the show today, we have Richard Dvorak, who started Discovery Point Wealth Advisors. He's actually been an entrepreneur since he was 13 years old. All sorts of accolades, certifications. We're going to be diving into the topic of scaling businesses and how do you actually understand what the valuation is? What do I need to do as a business owner or entrepreneur to maximize that valuation for an exit? Richard, welcome to the show.
Yeah, thanks, Sean. Glad to be here.
All right, so I have to go all the way back, 13 years old, first venture into entrepreneurship. Tell me a little bit about that.
I heard somebody say one time that every entrepreneur has either had a yard care business or they had a paper route. I don't know if there's paper routes anymore, but I know a lot of kids cut grass. So that's what I did when I was 13. Didn't grow up with a lot of money, but I had a desire to make money. And so that was the route I chose. My dad drove me around in it was a minivan until I got my license at 15. And then I did it, and I ran a small crew, and I did that all the way through high school and some into college.
Nice. Okay. And so tell me a little bit, did you continue doing that during college, or when did you transition over into starting Discovery Point, like right out of school?
Yeah, I wish I would have continued that business, because knowing what I know now, I think I could have, scaled it and grew it and monetized it or still be running it. But it is what it is. So I think I didn't want to work in the 100-degree heat anymore when I got into college. And so I waited tables and bartended and worked at some high-end restaurants here in Houston.
Okay. And then why wealth advising?
When I graduated, I had one of these degrees that was business administration and management, which didn't really mean anything. It meant I was going to do something in business. And when I graduated, I didn't really know what I wanted to do. I didn't have a clear path. Nothing excited me. I'd go to career fairs or job fairs, and my resume was out there on sites, and people would contact me, and it'd be like sales position or assistant VP or some type of thing where you'd work up the corporate ladder. And so at the time, American Express Financial Advisors essentially would hire anybody. They did the spoon test. You could fog a spoon, they'd hire you. And so they brought me into a pitch. That's the best way I can describe it, as a room. And there was a guy who was one of my early mentors. And they basically said, hey, you could make six figures your first year. Now, there was other stuff, like you're going to have to cold call and you're going to have to work in the evenings. I kind of glossed over that, I think. And I heard that six figure and that I controlled my own destiny. So being, I guess, a natural born entrepreneur, that appealed to me.
Got it. Okay. All right. And then you started your business. What was it like when you first started? Because the first few years are absolutely brutal. Was it that way for you?
Yes, I do. I look back at it with fondness in the sense that I don't have to do it anymore. It was part of the learning, but I sat in a cubicle. We called it the bullpen, and it was about this big. And this was when the internet was just kicking off, so the internet wasn't a big thing. So I had a stack of leads. They'd put the stack of leads there on paper, and you had a phone. I didn't have a computer to take notes or do anything, and you were just calling people. So sorry if you're listening to this and I called you when you were at dinner. at 7:30, but that was the deal. If you didn't have appointments, you were calling. So it was basically a numbers game. It was cold calling. I appreciate that experience, and I appreciate more so the fact that I don't have to do it anymore. So it was brutal, but it was a good, there were some good lessons learned. Let's just put it that way.
I think the whole cold calling thing is something that a lot of people fear because it's just rejection after rejection after rejection. And then one day you get somebody that at least listens and then say, no, thank you. And then finally somebody expresses interest. But it's such a long, arduous process of just denial after rejection after rejection. Did that harden you in a sense or get you kind of primed to continue building your business? Because there's no shortage of rejection, I'm sure.
Yeah, I think so, Sean. I remember I had a 3% conversion ratio, which was really high at the time. But that meant 97 people either didn't pick up the phone or said no or hung up on you. And I remember I was dating a woman at the time, and I told her one evening, I said, I think I'm getting ulcers. Like, this is really hard. She said, you've only been doing it for 3 months. I said, it is that bad. I think I had some early success. I got through it. And what I learned early on is if you do a good job for people and they refer you, then you could turn that into the new business. So I quickly realized that was the path for me, not cold calling. So I think the cold calling made me appreciate that, referrals was a better path.
I think that the referrals are absolutely a better path, but it's a slow burn. You have to deliver at a very high level, earn their trust, so much trust that they feel comfortable referring you over to somebody else because they're putting your name on the line here. They're under, their neck. And so they're extremely powerful, but also I think you build a tremendous amount of momentum and velocity over time. And there's this like exponential curve where all of a sudden, all of these referrals from all of these people that you've supported for so many years gets to a point where now you're not having to do the outbound. It's more just organic inbound. Fair?
Yeah, Sean, I would agree. I think the best marketing is great service. If you deliver a great experience, people want to share that with other people. And I was talking with my team recently, and I said, do you think we have a world-class business? Because we have a very good business. And most of them said, yeah, we do. We're highly ranked nationally and in the company, and we get accolades and praise. And I said, I don't know. We may be like best in class, but we're not a class of one. And here's how I know that. Every client is not referring us to another client. And so what could we do internally to step up our game? How can we elevate what we're doing and not become complacent? So my goal is to not be best in class, is to be a class of one. So I think that even though we do a good job and we're proactive and we give holistic advice, I think we can elevate that. I think any business owner could always elevate that.
Why did you choose that route over just pumping ad dollars and marketing dollars?
I don't know that much about advertising, to tell you the truth. And there's certain limitations and restrictions in the financial services industry. I mean, we're very highly regulated, so there's certain things we can do and certain things we can't do. I've hired some people to work on business development and do our social media and, put more content out into the universe. So I think some of that advertising, the SEO, that will be coming, but it's just not been something that historically we've done for the last 25 years.
Whenever it comes to creating the content, especially organic content, I think it works beautifully from a lead nurture perspective and a validation. So if somebody refers a friend over to you and they immediately pull up your website, pull up your social media, and they say, oh, he's creating a bunch of content. Oh, look at all this stuff that they're doing. It immediately gives you even more credibility and it removes friction from the sales process. So I think there's a lot of value in it. And then whenever you start exploring, do we do organic? Do we do paid ads or SEO? Just kind of starting to dip into all of these different areas and then monitor, figure out which one yields the best results, and then double down, triple down in that arena whenever it comes to the lead generation side of things.
Yeah, totally agree, Sean. I think that I have a big goal for the business in the next 5 years. And what I realized is organic growth would only get us so far. So when you're talking about the social media and the content and marketing, that's more looking for that inorganic growth, right? Pulling in people that maybe aren't connected with existing clients. And so I absolutely see the importance of that now. Yeah. It's just not something that I've been very good at or had a great understanding of for years.
Okay, so you primarily work with entrepreneurs, business owners? Fair. Can you give me a better sense of what that looks like? What do your ideal customers look like?
Most of our clients, I would say $10 million plus in revenue. They are usually pre-sale business owners, and they're often, I wouldn't say maybe overlooked or underserved by wealth managers, because most wealth managers, and I'm the same way, we get paid to manage assets. So we'd like to manage people's assets, help them grow it, help them minimize taxes. But with business owners, most of them, 80% or more of their wealth is tied up in the business. It's illiquid. And so those are very attractive clients if they have an exit or a partial exit, but when the money's in the business, they're not. So there's not many wealth managers that have a process that can help them align their personal, professional, and business goals. And so I think you asked me who we work with. I mean, that's who we work with. And I think it's important because these business owners have goals just like anybody else, but they don't have a 401k usually, or they may have a pension from ExxonMobil. So they need to figure out how do I align the business with my personal and financial goals.
Do you see many entrepreneurs that built up a career in corporate America and then jumped over into starting a business?
I see some. I think the majority of people, though, knew they were an entrepreneur. They had that experience at an early age, like me cutting grass. And maybe they didn't go that path initially, but they jumped out of corporate America and went into the business ownership. And a lot of times it's a family business. So the kids follow after the parents. Yeah. So I think it's, I don't know, just a mix of those.
Yeah, I see a lot of people that maybe they were just naturally gifted or mechanically inclined, and they had an uncle that was a framer, and so they started getting into remodeling houses and then building houses, or something similar with plumbers and HVAC and things like that. And so while they know their craft or their trade, they don't always truly understand how to run a business, how to understand the financials, how to read a P&L, how to hire, how to build the right team as they scale. Can you give me a sense, do you focus just on the financials, or do you help some of your clients in terms of creating some more structure in their business?
It's both. I want to pull on a thread that you just mentioned, though, about the owner or the business owner that was good at a trade or a craft, but they don't know how to run the business. It's like the E-Myth. Have you read the E-Myth Revisited? The lady has a pie shop. Well, she's great at pies, and now she has to do the financials and the marketing and the advertising and the accounting. And I think that's more common in America. Statistics would bear that out. There's more people like that. A lot of times these people have given themselves jobs. It's one person that runs a shop, or maybe they have a couple of employees, and they really don't have the infrastructure and systems around them. So it's just it is a business, and I respect that, but many of them will not grow over $70,000 a year in income. So I think there's more of that than the businesses that really build that team, build the infrastructure, and grow. So you asked me how we help business owners. Is it with the financials? I'll give you an example. Recently, we had an owner come in, and they're getting a little bit older, 70 years old, and they've got real estate, some cash, but no investments. And they said, Richard, we'd like to be financially independent in 5 years because we don't know if we can do this forever. We'd like to continue doing it. The wife doesn't want to be in the business. The husband loves it. Okay, but they're getting older. And so what I said is, well, how much do you need to achieve the goals? They don't really know. They don't know how much. So what I did in the financial planning process is said, well, you need to have $8 million. Okay, and if you gave me $8 million, I could turn that into the income you need for the rest of your life for the next several decades. So that means the business needs to be worth, let's say, 10 or 11 pre-tax so that they can net that. So now what that owner can do is align their business goals and their growth plans with that financial target. So that's an extreme example because many business owners will have retirement plans set up through work or some investments they've accumulated over time or income producing real estate. But that's an extreme example. And that type of client, Sean, is not attractive to a typical wealth management firm because there's really no wealth right now. But if we can help them successfully, if we can help them have clarity around what they need to do with the business to achieve the goals, and they do have a monetary event, they exit or a partial exit, then they will probably want us to help them manage some of those assets or all of them.
Well, I think that exercise that you just talked through is extremely powerful in that a lot of times these business owners, they'll build something up over multiple decades and not even have a target. It just grows because service execution was really high.
Yeah.
They were passionate about what they did. They cared about their customers, but they're not actually setting meaningful targets. And so they're just kind of aimlessly wandering and still achieving high levels of success. But it could be so much higher if they were intentional, if they set a target and said, hey, we're currently at 10, we want to get to 15 over the next 5 years. Now let's work backwards. How do we accomplish that? What steps do we need to put in place? What are the current constraints in the business that are preventing us from doing that thing? So working with someone like yourself that can help identify, hey, here is the long-term goal. Here's where you're at. Here's where you need to be. You can at least set them on a path.
Yeah, Sean, I don't know if you've ever talked to a business owner and you ask them what their goal is and they say 100 million in revenue. You heard that before? It's pretty common. And I'll ask the owner, well, why 100 million? Where did that come from? They're like, well, I don't know. We're doing 30 right now and 100's bigger than 30. And there's no reason. And by the way, I will never begrudge an owner for setting a hairy, audacious goal, right? Just for the heck of it. You want to do $1 billion, you want to do $2 billion. I don't care. I'm not going to discourage you or rain on your parade. But what I do want to figure out is, well, what do you need? You know, we know 100% of owners will exit the business. I mean, you and I are going to exit. They're going to carry us out, or we're going to decide to exit our businesses. And we have to have a plan. We have to be prepared. So in that case, I want the owner to know, well, yeah, 100 million in revenue, that's nice, but you only need, I say only, $20 million. So maybe the business doesn't need to be worth that much. So I don't mind the big goal. I've got them myself, but I think it's very important they know their target equity valuation, right? Because then if we were doing retirement planning for somebody, I use the example of ExxonMobil. Well, we need to know how much money do you need to successfully retire. The owner is no different. It's just that money is typically in the business. So the target equity valuation is a really important number. And then, like you said, Sean, they can then align all of their decisions around the business to hit that target equity valuation.
Okay, so let's break this down a little bit. Talk to me about what is valuation? Like, what does that mean? How does a business owner figure that out? Like, what is their business worth? Because a lot of times they're like, hey, my business is worth $10 million.
Yeah.
Well, where'd you come up with that number? Well, a buddy of mine's got one similar, and that's what he sold his for. Okay.
Yeah.
So how do you help a business owner actually understand, one, what that means, and then two, how do we actually get to that number?
Yeah. The country club valuation is what you're talking about. Well, my buddy that I golf with just sold for 10 million. Well, the buddy's in a different industry. You have no idea what the net income is. You have no idea what the infrastructure looks like. Very, very common. And I think that you never know what the value of the business is until you go to market. It's like a home. You know, somebody could tell you your business is, or your home's worth a certain amount, but until you go to market, you don't know what somebody's willing to pay. That being said, most businesses are going to be priced in a range of multiples. And it could be a multiple of revenue. It could be a multiple of seller's discretionary earnings. It could be a multiple of EBITDA. There's different metrics that you can use, but all of them are going to be based on that range. So for example, there's an industry I was looking at recently, and the multiple of EBITDA was anywhere from 2.5 to 6. Pretty big range.
That's a range.
Right? So if I'm doing 1 million of EBITDA, that business could be worth 2.5, but with the same EBITDA, it could also be worth 6. And so you never really know until you go to market, but there's a reason that some of those are going to be on the higher end of the multiple and some are going to be on the lower end. So there are, to go a little bit deeper on the question, Sean, there are databases that track private sales transactions. that we can access and many people can access them. And you can go out and see businesses that are in your industry and you could see what they sold for. So we record that information so that there is that data available. You can have business brokers, you can have M&A, you can have valuation services, valuation companies, there's online tools. So there's a lot of different ways to get the valuations, but hopefully I'm answering your question about how you can determine the value.
And here's the thing. I see you're absolutely right. Market dictates value, whether it's a house, a business, or if you're an employee finding a job, the market is going to tell you what you're actually worth. But a lot of times, so let's unpack this database that you were talking about as far as transactions. Yes, you get a little bit of information about the financials of the business, probably a lot of information about the financials of the business. You start to understand, okay, what is the top line? What is EBITDA? What does all of this stuff look like? But I'm curious, how deep does that information go? Like, are they actually going into what does the org structure of the business look like? Is it completely flat? Is there hierarchy? Is there any key man risk? Or like, what information is there? Or is this just a benchmarking tool to give you a sense of where it's at?
It's the latter, Sean. So none of that information that you asked about is included. It's just going to be what's their revenue, what's their net income, and what was the multiple that it was sold for. And there might be a little bit more information about the companies, but it doesn't tell the whole story. So you can look at one of those with the same financial metrics and you can see a much higher multiple on that sale than another one. And so it doesn't tell the whole story.
Yeah. And then, so I touched on key man risk. I see this a lot where an entrepreneur is like, oh, okay, my business is worth this. Well, if you exit and truly exit, no, it's not. If you can't step away, go on a vacation for 2 or 3 months and the business just keep on, not just stay flat, but keep growing, there is key man risk there. And I would imagine a lot of buyers factor that in of, can this business operate without Joe, the owner?
Yeah. I've got some clients that I work with, they hired us not too long ago, and fortunately they have assets that they've accumulated outside the business to create their financial independence. But they have a decent business. It's doing, I don't know, many millions of dollars in revenue, and it's got nice net income, but they are the business. They're the creatives, they're the salespeople. And so it's really not a sellable business. Unless they stay on as employees, which most people don't. You don't want to buy the owner. You don't want them as an employee. They don't make a good employee, and they don't want to be an employee. So I've had conversations with owners like that. Your business, it's lucrative, but it's not attractive for sale. It may not be sellable. And so that is a big risk, owner dependency. There's really 4 things that we were talking about it earlier. What drives the value of a business? Why is one 2.5 multiple of EBITDA and one's 6? Well, there's something we call the 4 C's, and this is through the Certified Exit Planning Advisor designation through the Exit Planning Institute. But it's human capital, it's customer capital, it's structural capital, and it's social capital. So one of the things you mentioned was your human capital. Well, if the business is dependent on the owner, it's not an attractive business to buy unless I can come in and replace the role. So are there people in the business that are able to do that without the owner? So that'd be an example of human capital. But owner dependency is a real thing, John.
What about, there are some businesses like gyms, for example, where if you built a business and sold a product or service to gyms, for example, there's a high likelihood that there's going to be a lot of attrition in your customer base because 30% of gyms go out of business every single year. So how do you factor that in to the valuation of a business? Are you looking at customer retention, lifetime value, things like that?
Yeah. All of those. So that would be one of those C's. That's customer capital. So customer capital is there's a lot of different components, but the stickiness of the relationships, are they on long-term contracts? What is the retention? What's the lifetime value? How long do they stay? So all of those things absolutely are important. So if you have a gym where you don't have people locked in for a year, they can go month to month, that is going to be less attractive than one where you've got people locked in for 12 or 18 months.
Yeah. Okay. All right. So we've covered a lot of bases. Now, we've talked about all of the things up to an exit. Do you help owners through the exit process, through the transaction? What does that look like?
Yes. So when an owner exits the business or there's a partial exit, I think the most important thing is, well, let me back up. I was going to say having a team, but I think it's making sure they're not only prepared financially, right? They need to know their numbers, like what's their target equity valuation, how much do they need to achieve all of the financial goals that are important to them. They need to have a team around them then to make sure that they are executing effectively. But one of the big things that team members don't talk about is what's next. So one of the statistics out there is that 75% of owners regret selling the business after 1 year. Have you heard this? You're nodding your head.
I've watched it happen.
Seen it.
I wasn't aware of the statistic, but with all the transactions that I've been a part of over the years, that checks out.
Why do you think that happens, or what do you see as the reason?
There's probably a correlation to the amount of failed integrations post-transaction. These entrepreneurs, they build something up over years or even decades. They exit the business and then they have to watch it get burned to the ground. And that is heartbreaking for them. I've seen it happen numerous times. And yes, there are instances where the business owner stays on and then they're an employee and they have to report to a CEO that they actually don't like. They liked him pre-sale, but after the transaction, after they fall in line, and then they see all of the changes that had to occur to their baby, and their hands are tied behind their back. They just have to sit and watch it burn. Like, that can crush someone.
Yeah. Well, could you imagine? You built a business for 30 or 40 years, and then it just gets decimated. Yeah. And the people that help you build the business get decimated.
Oh, yeah.
Right? They lay them off or they leave the business. And that is a shame. But one of the other big reasons, Sean, is they don't have a plan for life after business. The business has consumed them, right? It's been their life. It's been their identity. So they don't have a way to feel productive. They're not needed anymore. There's no big problems to solve. There's no emails that are in their inbox except for the spam stuff you get. So that's a big component.
The thing also is there's usually a non-compete in place for a given period of time. And so if they spent years or decades honing their craft, developing and building skills around building a company in this vertical, and now they have to sit on their hands for 2 or 3 years, they can't do anything. And yeah, they've got a whole bunch of money, but entrepreneurs that build like this, they're wired to solve problems, to go. And if their hands are tied, they're not allowed to go start another business. They just kind of poke around, they go on their vacations, buy their houses and yachts, and then they're just like, all right, well, what do I do? Well, I guess once this non-compete runs up, I'm going to go ahead and fire the next thing up type of a thing. But they have that period of time where I can see they're just miserable.
Yeah, I think and that is a shame also because money doesn't make them happy. I mean, you need a certain amount of money to be comfortable, but you can't golf every day, all the time. You can't fish every day, all the time. I'll ask business, what are you going to do? I'm going to fish. How long does that take? Is that like all day, 7 days a week? What are you going to do the rest of the time? Are you going to golf? So whenever I get that answer, I'm a little concerned, and I will tell people, you really need to think through this emotional side of it before you execute, because you will likely be dissatisfied and unhappy. So I think it's really important for them it's the softer side of exit planning, but it doesn't mean it's less important. Right? We're helping these owners exit, and all the other professionals are doing a great job of making sure it's legally sound, and they're minimizing taxes, and that we've got enough money to last them the rest of the life. And nobody's asking the question, what are you going to do next?
Well, and here's the thing. The entire system, the whole exit system is built around the financial reward. And so a lot of the people that are helping facilitate and helping guide through the exit, they're going to get their payday. Mm-hmm. And so the system itself is wired to reward for the exit, for the financial transaction. Everybody gets paid, but I can't help but appreciate your mindset around, let's have a real human conversation. You are clearly purpose-driven. You have been on a mission the entire time you've been building this company. This mission will go away. And yes, you can go fishing. Yes, you can go play golf. But without a mission or purpose, you're going to be aimless and eventually just probably get depressed in some sense. And that's tough.
Yeah. The number, Sean, the 75%, that comes from PricewaterhouseCoopers, and they interviewed thousands of owners that had exited. So it's not a small survey sample. And it wasn't just regret. They said profoundly regret. That always stood out to me. And I think that's one of the biggest reasons is not having a purpose, not having a mission. And the purpose doesn't have to be work, right? It's like we go through an exercise with our exiting owners. We call it STEP. And I didn't make it. I took it from the Exit Planning Institute. But you go through this exercise. What's important to you spiritually? I'm not advocating for any particular religion, but is there something important to you spiritually? Things. It's okay to have stuff. All right. Do you want a house in Colorado? Do you want a boat? Experiences that you want to have and the people you want to impact and be around. And you can do that. You don't have to have a business to do it. So business owners that have exited can plug into groups where you mentor other owners. You can take the skills that help you build a successful business or successful teams. There are a lot of nonprofits that would love to have you and love to have your contributions, not just your checks. So there are ways that business owners can feel that productivity and that purpose, but they have to be deliberate. And if they haven't thought about it, they're going to sit around like you after they bought the stuff. They're going to go, all right, what's next? Was this it? Is this all there is?
One of the things that I've discovered is how fulfilling it is to help inspire and influence and educate and lift others up. So my background, I grew up, no money, biological father was gone, and I was just intrinsically driven to climb the corporate ladder, to make the six-figure salary, to get the big VP title and the Corvette and the house and all the things. And once I was able to attain those things, I started to recognize that didn't matter. It wasn't fulfilling. And I was struggling for a period of time until I found this passion around coaching others, developing them, helping them unlock the potential that they have inside of them. And as you and I talked about before we started recording, I left my corporate job a little under 2 years ago to start a coaching business. And I make legitimately 1/20th of what I did before, but I am more fulfilled than in as long as I can remember. And I mean, I still have the things, but and there's cars that I would like to buy because I'm just a car guy, but also that's not what drives me. It's about positively impacting people's lives. Yeah. Now, I think that entrepreneurs that exit, if they find themselves in a situation like that, to be intentional about going and finding peer advisory boards. How can I go help other executives? How can I go help other entrepreneurs? Because when you focus on building others up, it is just beyond fulfilling, and it gives you that purpose. Yeah. I am now focused on lifting Richard up. Yeah. I am now focused on helping Joe grow and things like that. So it's just, you said, I think deliberate, but deliberate or intentional, you have to have that purpose or you're just going to wander.
Yeah. Are you familiar with strategic coach, Dan Sullivan's coach? Okay. Do you know the concept unique ability?
That I'm not aware of.
Okay. No. It's a foundational concept. In fact, Dan Sullivan was on a podcast and they said, if we took away everything that you have financially in your business and left you with one thing, what would it be? And he said unique ability. And they said, why? He goes, because I could rebuild everything. And the way I think about unique ability, or my understanding of it is, it's everybody's really good at something. I mean, there's things, Sean, you know that you're not good at. You should not do those, right? Yes. Like maybe you're plumbing or something like that. Maybe you're good with it, but I'm not. I should not be doing that. And I know I'm not good at it. I can get somebody else. And there's things you're good at. There's things you're excellent at. But they don't necessarily give you energy. You have superior skills. Like when you were in corporate America, a lot of the stuff you talk about on your podcasts and the stuff you put out, you were good at that stuff, but it didn't necessarily drive you, right? Like you're driven now. It didn't have the passion. So unique ability is a really neat concept because you get to recognize as an owner or anybody, even if you're an employee in a business, what are my unique abilities? What are the things that I have superior skills, but also give me that energy? They excite me. When I see it on my calendar, I'm looking forward to doing that. Mm-hmm. That's a sign that it's unique ability. And then if you can align yourself with your unique abilities in your job or in your personal life, then you're happier. But usually you end up getting compensated more because you're bringing your best energy and your best expertise. So what you were saying, I think what you're figuring out and getting clarity on, whether you call it unique ability or not, is what those are for you. And for the owners that exit, they can figure that out easily. There's an exercise that Strategic Coach has, and I've used it. It's not proprietary, to take people through. It's like, here's the book and here's the exercises that you do. So you can take those unique abilities to any area of life, whether it's serving in your church or it's the nonprofit or it's a youth group, whatever that is, you can apply those. So it doesn't have to be just in your business. So I think you had asked me earlier, like, what are three concepts I may want to cover? And I was listening to a podcast on the way here, and they asked a question. They said, hey, knowing what you know now, like if you went back 20 years and started your business, what are some things that you wish you knew? I wish I knew about unique ability, because then I would not only align my roles and my responsibilities with that, but all of my team members would be unique ability hires. I'd figure out what those are and figure out what the role that suited them was. That might have been a long answer to your short question.
No, but I'm actually going to pull that thread a little bit more, because for the first more than half of my life, I thought, well, my unique ability was technology, designing data centers, WAN architecture, building technology environments, and delivering those services. All of that could be done behind my keyboard, which worked out beautifully because I was an extreme introvert and I didn't have to talk to people. I could do everything I needed to with the door closed and the light off. And it wasn't until my mid-30s, whenever I started searching for something more, that I started leaning into building others. And now I would say building others is my unique ability. And I have all of the past 2 decades of experience in corporate America, building myself up, leading these different functional teams, and navigating corporate politics, that now I can take the lessons that I learned and impart that knowledge on as many people as possible. Because while I can navigate politics, it is exhausting, and everybody feels it. And there's just this negative mindset and stigma around big companies and the politics associated. And yes, that's how the system is built and designed. But if you learn how to navigate within them, you can still achieve some sort of optimal result or outcome, but you have to have the skills. And so I would say now my unique ability is sharing the lessons that I've learned and helping others up. And man, I love it.
Yeah. Well, I can tell whenever I'm talking to somebody and they are clear on what they're passionate about, what their unique abilities are, if you want to call it that, they'll lean into it. You can see it on their face. They're smiling, right? The energy gets ramped up. And now that I know what my unique abilities are, and I've known them for, I would say I went through the exercise 8 or 9 years ago, I'd always wanted to retire at 50. Now that I'm 49, I'm not going to retire, because now I can do more of the things that I love that give me energy. So why would I retire? I just get other people to do the things that are not unique ability activities. And I think this is good for business owners to think about if they've never heard that concept, or even a high level, manager in a company, a VP or a CEO. A lot of times these people retire because they're doing a lot of stuff that they don't want to do. They're like, well, I don't want to do that stuff anymore. And if you ask them, well, what are the things you love to do? Right? They'll lean into those 1 or 2 things, right? They still have energy and passion for them, but the problem is they haven't figured out how to let go of the other stuff. So sometimes people in corporate America, they'd work longer if they could get rid of the other stuff. So that could be a conversation with the boss and say, hey, I love this stuff. I think I'm really good at it. I don't love this stuff. Is there any way we could let go of this? And I think owners wouldn't exit. Like, they get burnout. They're 60 years old. I've been doing this for 40 years. And you ask them, it's usually because they're having to manage all this stuff in the business, not just the things that really made them passionate about starting the business in the first place, or the things that they were really good at. They were great at sales and client relationships. They don't do any of that anymore. Yeah. Okay. Or they're great at leadership. Well, now they're spending time with the financials. So I think if everybody knew what their unique abilities are, I don't know if anybody would retire unless they're forced out.
That's such a great point. And as you were talking through that, I was thinking about how important it is for people to build and amass wealth. Now, we've got the entrepreneurs and then we have employees, but why do we want to amass wealth? Yeah, people want stuff, and there's some some credibility that comes with it. But when you amass enough wealth to then have optionality and choose what you want to do with your life, that's the end game. Because then you can hire the people to do the crap that you don't want to do and allows you to focus on the things that you do love. Now, if you're an employee, this is a little bit different, because if you don't like your boss and you don't need the money from that company, you just go find another job. Say, hey, this isn't really a good fit for me anymore. I'm going to go do something else. But that financial freedom that comes along with living below your means, something that seems to be increasingly rare this day and age, that was the turning point for me whenever I recognized all the stuff, cool, it's fun for a little bit, but when I started living below my means and got to the point to where I could actually walk away from something that wasn't healthy for me, that was the biggest unlock. And starting a business is obviously stressful, but still so much more fulfilling because I get to do what I love, and I'm able to do what I love because I lived below my means for a very long time to set myself up for the highest probability of success in building my business. More people need to operate with that mindset.
I agree. Government too. I think you need to go tell Congress to live within their means, and then we may not have all the mess that we have. But
I don't know. That's a long conversation for sure.
They need to hire you to come in and do some coaching. I agree with you, and I think about this with my team. So I'm in peer groups, and we were talking about compensation. What do we compensate our team members? And we went through, and I'm on the higher end, definitely. Like, why are you paying these people so much? And it's not just pay. We have a profit sharing plan that we have in place, so everybody get, all ships rise in a rising tide. But I said, you don't understand. I'm buying back my time. They are doing the things that I don't want to do that are not my unique ability activities. You guys are doing stuff that you say you don't like doing it, but you're not willing to let it go and pay somebody to do it. And so now you're thinking about retirement. I'm thinking about how do I continue to expand my unique ability freedom and build a team around me that not only can do that other stuff, but they like to do it. Like maybe they're really good at it. Maybe they have passion around it.
All right, so I'm going to dig into this. I have always leaned to the philosophy of pay premium talent, premium wages, because they're taking the crap that you don't want to do. And you want to surround yourself with excellence. Build a team so strong you don't know who the leader is. Now, everybody obviously knows who the leader is, but in any given conversation or room, hey, Sally's our expert in marketing. Joe is our expert in service execution or sales or whatever. But when you pay top-tier talent, then you increase the likelihood that your business is going to be successful. And far too many companies, they operate with this scarcity mindset, and they're like, well, we're just going to pay them just enough to get in the door. Okay, well, you're also going to get bottom-of-the-barrel talent. And then you're going to complain that none of them stick around, none of them go above and beyond. Well, maybe you pay them what they're worth.
Yeah.
Now, you do run the risk of paying top-tier talent and them taking advantage of you. You have to be able to set boundaries, and you have to be aware of, okay, is there risk? I'm paying top-tier talent over here, and am I giving them too much control of the business? And if they exit one day, is that going to cause an issue? But I prefer to lean into paying the top-tier talent what they're worth, and even if you're paying 20% above market for getting that top person, they're going to make up for it. They're going to more than pay for themselves.
Yeah. I mean, let's say that 20% is on a $150,000 team member. Okay, it's $30,000.
Yep.
Well, what does it cost to hire somebody new?
Exactly.
Especially if you're using a recruiter or executive search. So, and it's disruptive to the business. Mm-hmm. Now you got to integrate somebody that you don't know will work. So I think some people do err on that side, Sean. I'll just pay a little bit less. Mm-hmm. And then the person walks for $10,000. Yeah. And it's a bigger headache and a bigger nightmare than that. I don't mind buying back my time because I went to Grand Cayman with my family for 10 days and there's no check-ins with the office. I don't check my work email. Clients don't call me. The team doesn't call me. There's no Teams texts. I don't get anything. I can disconnect because I trust that things are going to get done. The other thing, though, I would say another component around that is we talked about what makes a business valuable. Why would you get to hire multiple? It's structural capital. So it's systems, it's processes, are they being used by everybody? Are they repeatable? That also helps the owner protect against that employee that leaves. So if you have a really talented employee or team member and they leave and they've got all this institutional knowledge in their head, like they had their way of doing things, and you can't replicate that or document it, that is a risk to the business. Because that person will leave, or they can die, or there's a lot of things that can happen. So structural capital is really important when you're trying to increase the value of the business. And we have that. We've got repeatable systems and processes and people that can do overlapping.
Well, when you build in that structural capital, it creates an incredible amount of resilience. And if the wrong person, if the right person steps out, yes, you have the recruiting fees associated with it, and then there's the ramp period. So there's some automatic assumptions we can make in terms of lost productivity. But it's that loss of tacit knowledge that made everything run so smoothly that hits for a year or 2 years before you fully recoup. And so, like, why not just pay people what they're worth? And this is something that boggled my mind whenever I was leading HR in a former life. It's like, pay people what they're worth. Oh, they left, they're getting a $10,000. It's like, well, we should have been paying them that to begin with, because from a benchmarking perspective, they're just going and getting the median. And we were cutting below. So, why not? And I mean, that's a topic for another day. But so as we start to kind of wind this down, I want to think about these business owners that are thinking about an exit. Maybe it's 2 years, maybe it's 10 years out. What are some big things that they need to have in the back of their mind to start processing and start kind of positioning themselves for an optimal exit?
The analogy I use, or the picture, is 3 legs of a stool. And you don't start planning for an exit before the exit happens. It's like selling your home. You don't just decide to put it on the market and the next day you put it on the market. It takes some deliberation. You need to get an estimate of the value. You need somebody to come in like a realtor and say, you need to change this, clean this up. So a business is no different, but the stakes are much higher than most people's house. It's your biggest asset. So I would say you have to start on the personal side. Why are you wanting to retire? Or is there a compelling purpose that you have moving forward? Is there something moving on to you that's going to give you that you're moving on to that's going to give you a bigger future, right? Or are you leaving your bigger future? So I would say digging into the soft side of that is really important. And you need to make sure that you're doing it for the right reasons, not just being burnt out. The second thing is financials. Then you have to figure out, okay, how much do I need? And this is really important. I was talking to a client. I said, well, how much do you guys need? We were doing the initial plan. About $500,000. I said, I've traveled with you guys. You sure? What about your travel expenses? Who pays for that? Oh, the business does. Oh, what about your cars? Oh, what about your health insurance? What about your kids' stuff? Oh, well, how much is all that? Oh, it's probably another $300,000. So you guys need $800,000. So if we build the plan on 5, probably going to miss the mark. You need $800,000 per year to replicate your lifestyle. So the owner needs to know the financials, and then you align the business with that. So if you don't have enough money to achieve the goals you want, and that could be financial independence, it could be generational money for the grandkids, it could be buying the beach house or the lake house. All of those things need to be factored in to the exit, and then you got to figure out, is the business worth that much? So getting a business valuation, figuring out what the street value is, what the after-tax value is, and then how you're going to turn that capital into the assets that are going to meet those goals for the rest of your life. And it doesn't have to be investing with us. We'd love to manage the wealth, and we do a good job at that. But are you going to do real estate? Are you going to do your own investments? Are you going to use a wealth manager? Is it going to be a combination of those? So having somebody that can get that plan together. And then lastly, it's the team that is going to get you over the finish line. So you may have a CPA you've had for 20 years as a great CPA, but they are not accustomed to exit planning. They don't work on a transaction for a $100 million business. Your estate planning attorney is not the attorney you may need to do the transaction. Do you need an M&A or a business broker? So somebody needs to quarterback that team. You need to have somebody. I would recommend a certified exit planning advisor or CEPA. That's what I am. They're not just wealth managers. They're CEPAs that are business coaches and CPAs and M&A professionals. So one person that knows the owner's goals, knows their aspirations, knows what's important to them, knows about their family and their financial situation, that can bring together that team that can work on the owner's behalf. Okay? So executing on the financial side, but as I said earlier, Sean, executing on the emotional side. What's next? What's the next act going to be? So I think about it.
It's the emotional side of it, to kind of bring this back around to it, that a lot of people lose sight of. Extremely important for them to keep that in mind and not get googly-eyed over the dollars from the potential transaction. But also, I'm a firm believer that whether you plan on exiting the business or not, you should build it in a very similar way. It just gives you optionality.
Yeah, one thing I'll say, sometimes exit planning, at least in Strategic Coach, the community there, a bunch of entrepreneurs, when you talk about retirement, it's almost a dirty word. We don't talk about retirement here. And I think with a lot of business owners, that scares them because it's their identity, right? It's their livelihood. It's what they've done for 30 or 40 or 50 years. And I think a message that I would leave for business owners is exit planning is just good business planning. Because if you think about those 4 C's, if your human capital is strong, if your customer capital is strong, if your social capital, and that's the culture of the company, is strong, if your, did I say structural already? Customer capital, those 4 C's.
Yeah.
If those are all strong, then guess what? Your business is probably more attractive now, which means it's more lucrative now. It's probably more fun for you to work in and for the people that work for you. So it's like having a house. I use the example of you selling a house. When does it look best? When does your house look best?
When you're about to sell it.
Yeah, not 2 years before you're about to sell it, because you cleaned up everything, you power washed, you brushed up the paint, you decluttered. Now the house is great. You're thinking, why are we moving? This house looks perfect. And the business is the same way. So if owners think about exit planning in that sense and they start to prepare it and it's more attractive, they may decide, I don't want to exit. Why would I? This business is rocking and rolling. So I don't want people to get hung up on that term exit planning when they run into somebody that says, oh, we do exit planning.
What's next for you?
Business-wise, personally, I think, Sean, we talked about unique ability, and obviously I've got some passion about that. I think it's one of the most important concepts I've learned in my life. And now that I use that, I just want to continue to expand that. I want to continue to live in that, whether it's in business, whether it's other business ventures, it's coaching that I do for teams, if it's just with my family and helping them understand what their unique abilities are. So I have 4 young kids. So helping them learn some of the things I wish I knew. I set a 10X goal. I told you this before. 5 years from now, I want to be 10 times bigger, and I don't know how to do that. I know I need to have different capabilities and skills, so I'm trying to up my game and surround myself with people that can do that. And that's one of those goals, like with the business owner. There's no reason for it, except it's just a huge goal that is going to cause me to stretch. So I think if I can do that but live in unique ability, then it's not to retire. I don't think I have a plan to retire, but I do have a plan if I need to or I want to. So that's next for me.
What is the one big thing that you want to leave the audience with?
Well, I love the concepts that we talked about and just all the things that we swerved into. I would just say selfishly from my business, if you're a business owner and you're listening to me and some of that resonated, aligning your personal, financial, and business goals, then engage us, reach out to us, because there are people that will work with you even if you don't have the $20 million in the bank. You don't have the liquidity. I guarantee you when you have the liquidity, I can find you 10,000 advisors that'll do it. But somebody that understands the entrepreneurial journey, that's been there themselves, that can appreciate the struggle and what you've accomplished, that can help you talk about your business and how that aligns with the other goals. There are people out there, not just me, but we have a unique process for doing that. And I just think that a lot of business owners don't know that's available to them. They think, I don't have any money. There's nobody that really can help me with these things right now.
Yeah. Got it. Richard, thank you so much for
You're
coming
welcome.
on, sharing all of this knowledge. You and I are going to have a lot more conversations in
Thanks,
the future.
Sean. I appreciate it. It was fun.
All right, everybody. If this was of value to you, we're going to have all of Richard's contact information in the show notes down below. Stay tuned in, watch the next show, and y'all have a good one.